Welcome to the front row. I'm your host, Brad Rowe, and this is a space where unfiltered stories of the human condition get told. Pull up a chair. I guess let's start this episode. We pick up where I left off the last one. So here we are entering into June of 2020 in the pandemic. That was a year that destroyed so many people's businesses and lives. But for me, it was actually extremely beneficial for my professional career. Gyms had shut down, and I was lucky to have the finances to build out a pretty sick home gym. And it was right around that time that I really started working with a lot of more high profile clientele. And it worked out perfect because they were looking for a more secluded place to live. I had just lost an investment deal with a client of mine to open up a performance and wellness center, and actually had immediately found a bigger investor in this and was in the initial talks of closing this deal. I'd also just started working with Mike Tyson, helping him with some rehab type things with the new fit. But we walk into June of 2020. I'm at the peak of my bodybuilding career. Right at the beginning of the month, Mike hires me as his full-time nutritionist, trainer, rehab specialist. I'm working with Mike twice a day, pretty much 7 days a week. I just signed the contracts for an amazing investment deal to open this world-class performance and wellness center with these billionaire investors. Signed a very considerable deal that they paid me a monthly consulting fee to do away with majority of my personal training business so I could focus on the high profile clients, as well as, working with people within their team to really polish up this, the business plan and, figuring out how to roll out this business that we were going into. And June 21st comes. My wife walks in the door, drops to her knees, bawling her eyes out, and says she can't do this anymore and wants out. That fucking destroyed me. I had never felt so broken in my entire life. I tried everything, begged and pleaded. It was like everything I'd sacrificed for, everything I'd killed myself for my whole life, this financial stability and security is finally here. Like, I've made it. I fucking did everything. I made it. And she fucking leaves me at that point. It just did not make sense. I'm like, how? All the times that I neglected us and neglected you and everything else, like, is finally paid off. Like, you can see the light. But there wasn't light in that marriage anymore. Our marriage wasn't perfect. As I mentioned, I just wasn't a present husband. I thought providing and making her life as easy as possible was what it took to be a husband. And in the back of my head was, let's just grind. Let's just work. And then when we get older, when I have kids, I'll be able to slow down and spend time with them. And that was my mentality. And she was a workaholic too. She had this grinding mentality. If you guys follow along, my wife also started a rescue at that point. We were about a year into the rescue, and I was helping support her throughout all of that. And, there was times that I thought about walking away, but I was just one of those people that, had this mentality of till death do you part, and as many times as I wanted to walk away, it's not what you did. Maybe I know it was something that was wounds of me coming from a broken family and just wanting to do everything to keep a marriage together. Again, there was times where, I resented her. I resented the rescue because I saw how much time and energy it was sucking out of her and financially how much of a drain it was on us. And I had always tried to make her life as easy as possible and really wanted her to find what she was passionate about from a business perspective. Whatever job that said she hated, I would I'd tell her to quit. And finally she got focused on this business coaching slash life coaching thing that she was doing, and she loved it and she was seeing amazing results. And then once the rescue really picked up, she neglected those things. And so I built up this resentment of like, I did everything to help you down this path. And now you're just kind of throwing it away for the animals. And don't get me wrong, like I'm one of the biggest animal lovers in the world, but I just didn't have the heart and the passion for it. She did. And don't get me wrong, I took care of the animals and it drove me nuts. Cause if you guys saw, I was as OCD as could be. So imagine having our own 4 dogs plus, you know, 2, sometimes 3 other rescue dogs in other different rooms because they can't interact. And so it just put so much extra work on my life. And I began to hate that and resent that. And I saw our lives slowly drifting apart, but I didn't want to grasp that reality. There was in the marriage, like I wanted kids so bad. I wanted family so bad. And I pushed, and even before we even got engaged, we had that conversation, and she was kind of always on the edge of whether she wanted him or not. And finally, before we got engaged, she was like, "Yes, I can see myself having kids with you." So that's what led to the engagement. And then even before the wedding, I was like, "Listen, like before we walk down this path, like I need to know because this is what I want. And if this isn't the path you want to go down, then let's not go down this path." And she said that that's what she wanted. So throughout the marriage, I was continuously pushing kids, and she kept saying, "No, not the right time." It was, "We don't have a house." Well, I bought you a house. Well, we don't have the financial stability. Well, here's a few $100,000 in the bank, and it was always a no. But it all came down to because I wasn't the man that I needed to be. I was angry. I wasn't present. And she would bring that up of how she didn't want to raise a kid in an angry household, and how she had a house full of love. And she saw how I was raised. She went back and saw my family and realized that this wasn't just me. This was the life that I was raised in, and she wanted different. And I just kept telling her that having kids was going to be the thing that changes me. Don't ever do that. Kids do not change you. I mean, sometimes they do, but you don't have a kid to change you. Um, but that built up resentment because, I wanted kids at a young age. I'd grown up in the Northeast, where you marry your high school sweetheart and you have kids by 25. And here I was mid-30s and no kids yet. And so my clock was ticking. So again, our marriage wasn't perfect. Um, I know my anger, and again, it wasn't anger at her. It was just these outbursts that just took her light away. When I saw that, and I saw her take her light away, and I saw how fun and playful she was. And when I was in a mood, I was just grumpy. I saw it dimmed, and that hurt me. And I used to tell her all the time that she deserved better than me, that she should leave me. And she would take it as like, I want to leave her, uh, but really it was, I just fucking hated myself and I didn't want to be with myself. So when she left, it was rock bottom for me. You know, being a father and a husband were the things that I put on the highest pedestal. Like that is the ultimate amount of success for me. And I just fucking failed at that first entry point. So again, there I was on top of the world, but just so broken. Having a once in a lifetime experience to train Mike Tyson, to be with one of the most interesting, intriguing men in the world every single day, twice a day. And I couldn't fucking enjoy it. Even more so than I could enjoy everything else I had accomplished. Suicide ideology took over hard. Um, so grateful I didn't own a gun at that point in my life. But to me, it was, I've sat there with a knife around my throat many times and getting in my Hellcat, doing 150, 160 and just wanting to pull the wheel. I'd always battled with some suicide ideologies, from all the pressure and the weight that I put on myself, from those wounds of never feeling like I was worthy or never feeling I could live up to the expectations that I put on myself. Just feeling like no one would care if I died, especially without having kids. Um, so that was the darkest, heaviest time of my life. And then to make matters worse, she was still living in the house as we tried to navigate things, and having the woman you love, because I loved her, like I loved her to death and I still do. She's an amazing human. But a lot of that was built on trauma, the extent of it. But having the person you love that you want to be with, sleeping a bedroom away from you and having to see them on a daily basis, and all you want to do is hold them and be with them and do everything you can to make it work. And I'm so proud that she never allowed that to slip. I know she was hurting. She hurt. That was such a hard decision for her. I know it was. I know she loved me, but I know that she was empty in that marriage. I took her light away. Um, and then one of the hardest realities of that came out, and I've never spoken about this to anybody because I always wanted to protect her and protect her image. But this is a truth that has to be spoke, that there was another guy involved. He was someone that was a fan of mine, someone that helped out in the rescue. And through that, they had built this relationship. And they went on this one trip together. And things just seemed suspicious to me. So when she got back, I called her out on it. And she admitted that there was feelings there for each other and nothing else had happened. And that just fucking broke me. Like, I would have rather my wife get fucking gangbanged by the LA Lakers than to have an emotional connection with somebody, even if it hadn't gone down an intimate route. And I fucking hated this guy. I probably would have killed him if I had seen him. And I hated her for it. Like, how could she hurt me like that? But honestly, I'm able to look back and understand that why that happened. I didn't give her anything emotionally, and she knew she wanted to leave, but she didn't have the strength to leave on her own. And this guy offered her comfort and offered her emotional security, and it gave her the strength to walk away and to make that hard decision, you know? But for a long time, I hated them. I hated her. I hated him. But I can honestly say at this point, like, I pray for them. I bless them. Um, I truly do. I want nothing but happiness for them. And, me and my ex, we still talk and we have a good relationship. And I'm so grateful for her. But that was a hard time. That was a hard time in my life. Months and months and months of severe depression and suicidal ideologies and uh, just feeling of more abandonment and more unworthiness. So I was faced with this dilemma: continue to hide and bury my shit, bury my pain, or get better. And as I said, I hated myself for too long. I didn't want to do that. And bodybuilding was an amazing outlet to be so hyper focused on everything and to just bury everything. And training was a way that I dealt with pain, that I dealt with emotional pain. Um, I actually can go back and tell you about not even just childhood, most of my life. I didn't know how to process emotional pain. I wasn't given those tools, but I knew the body could heal. So when I would get hurt, deal with pain, I would hurt myself. It was either smashing my head against a wall, um, biting chunks of skin out of my arm because it was a way to transmute that pain. And through other physical activities, it was a way for me to transmute that pain because the physical pain can heal, but I didn't know how to heal the emotional pain. So I had this decision. Like I said, here it was the peak of my bodybuilding career. Things were finally clicking. Like my back, which was my biggest, weakest point, was finally coming up and really hitting the prime age of what a male bodybuilder is, 35, 36. And I just knew that if I wanted to be better, I needed to make change. So I decided to retire. So here I am, just lost my wife, lost that major identity there of trying to be the best husband that I could possibly be. I walk away from my identity, from a career I built. Man, you want to talk about pain. God works in miraculous ways too. So during that time, when I had the investment deal in the wellness center, I kept asking my best friend to come out and be the GM. He was a manager of Waffle House. He was running like 37 stores. And we'd always joked about kids, about us coming to California and doing something out there. And so that was that opportunity. He kept turning me down. He had too much vested in the Waffle House thing. It was going to be, great retirement plan and everything. The day after my wife left me, he calls me up and says, "Hey, I've been thinking and I'm ready to do this." This is before I even knew God. I was an atheist at this point. And, but God took her out of my life and put him in mine. So he ends up leaving his career, which I told him to wait until I had signed a lease and everything. Leaves his career, moves cross country and moves in with me. And he's going through his own shit. So here we were, two men pretty much at rock bottom in our lives. He had a major gambling addiction and was very much in debt, dealing with his own trauma, and then just walked away from his career. So we're both just fucking going through it. And the pressure in that house was not a good place to be in. The bulimia, mentioned the bulimia. It had always been a part of my life. I'd go through phases, whether it was on high emotion or in a dark place. Food was always that thing that I ran to. Bodybuilding perpetuated that. You restrict yourself for so long, and then you have these cheat meals and you binge. And so like sweets were my real big trigger. Binge and binge and binge, but here I am post divorce, and it just fucking took over me. Not even, not exaggerating one bit, that I was probably purging 9 times a week. I was so sick of prepping meals for bodybuilding and everything. And I was kind of doing this keto diet. So I would order uh, bunless bacon double cheeseburgers from the Habit Grill and a Caesar salad with no croutons, and then wings from this other place. And I would just binge and binge and binge and throw up and binge and throw up. Like I said, the binging the bulimia had always been a part of my life, but it was intermittent, and it just consumed me for such a long period of time through that. And then I met a friend who was a psychic medium during this time. We had gone on, it was like an arranged type date thing, and we just ended up being friends. But she channeled to me about some things, and she told me that this business deal I had was going to fall through. And at the time I was like, what are you talking about? Again, they're paying me all this money. We have this like Loctite contracts. I spent a ton of money on lawyers. They had their own in-house lawyers, and they're flying me all over the country in a private jet, looking at properties in Austin and Miami and New York. And she's like, yeah, it's not going to happen. Well, sure enough, we're heading into middle of 2021, and the youngest son, who was going to be my business partner in this venture, um, takes up interest in soccer because they owned a professional soccer team. Now they own 2 major professional soccer clubs, AS Roma and Everton, and decides to focus on that. So, we had finally found the perfect location, this beautiful place in Los Angeles, right in the Marina Del Rey. We were looking at like a $383,000 a month lease deal. And nothing in LA had opened up yet. So we were hesitant and waiting. Uh, yeah, and they pulled the deal. Had another investor slide in, slightly smaller. That lasted for a few months, and things fell off that. She told me that wasn't going to work. And then me and one of my really good friends, Sean Drake, who's a chiropractor and a movement specialist down in Scottsdale, Arizona, we talked about opening our own facility together and self-funding it. So I put my house on the market, and this is a time in LA when houses were selling cash offers, over asking price on the market for a day or two. And my house was in a really hot neighborhood. I was 1.8 miles from the Forum and SoFi Stadium, and they were going to build into a dome for the Clippers not far away either. So really in a booming area. She's like, it's not going to sell. 3.5 months on the market, like one low ball offer. During that time, my friend Sean's wife cheats on him. His life destroys. He hits rock bottom, decides he doesn't want to do this business. So professionally, I'm like, all right, well, something else will come. During another reading, she told me that I was going to get humbled physically. Well, when I retired from bodybuilding, I decided that I wanted to be an athlete again. That's what I love the most. Like, to me, going out and playing hoops is one of my favorite things to do. I could play 5-on-5 all day. As a kid, that's what I loved. I mean, I'd go out and party till 4 a.m, and I would wake up on Saturday and Sundays to go play men's pickup games at the gym and go play for 3 or 4 hours, go home, take a nap, go back and work out, repeat the cycle. So playing hoops is my favorite thing. So I had this idea of, hey, let me see if I can match my combine numbers from college. I had a 42-inch vertical. I was like a 4.5, 340, really crazy, lateral movement. So I'd shifted my training to try to get back into more athletic style training. And that was my new goal. That was my new mission. My best friend went to go shoot hoops one day. And, I was probably like 255, closer to 260 at the point, still trying to downsize, but not, still on some gear, still dealing with that identity crisis of stepping away from bodybuilding completely. Well, I mean, even then I still had ups, 5'9" at 260 and grab rim easily, two hands. So we're just dicking around outside of these courts, and this dude shows up and he has a white man can jump shirt on. So what does ego do? Ego has me start jumping a ton, grabbing rim and like trying to dunk a tennis ball. Well, I have this one have it on video clip of me taking a 3-pointer, missing, grabbing the layup, going and jump to grab rim. And as I jump, my left quad tendon snaps. And I fall, I break my wrist. I didn't realize that until months later. But as soon as I took off, I knew. I just heard that snap, and it's so loud you can hear it in the video. And as soon as I hit the ground, my best friend comes running over, and I'm just like, dude, I'm so sorry. He's like, what? I'm like, I am so sorry. You're going to have to take care of me for a while. And he's like, what are you talking about? You remember? I'm like, no, dude, I like, look at my, look at my patella. My patella is on the side of my knee. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. My pain tolerance was just stupid. Like, I've torn so many things, and get right up. So yeah, I retire from bodybuilding. Now I blow my knee out, and it's one of the worst injuries that you can sustain as an athlete. The surgeon is Dr. Banfi. So he's the Rams and Dodgers surgeon. So he repairs it. And at the time I was still under contract with my investors, and I was like, you know what, like, this is amazing proof of concept, because part of what I wanted to do with everything was rehab, helping athletes. I had the newbie, we were going to offer stem cells and all these different type of peptides and things like that, and all these biohacking modalities like hyperbaric chamber and PMF and infrared sauna and things like that. So I'd kind of built up a nice little wellness thing at my house, and I was like, you know what, Mike, I'm gonna make this recovery my bitch. I'm gonna put everything into it. So got a hyperbaric chamber in my house, went and got stem cell injections done, every peptide imaginable, hired the best physical therapist. Like, as time's going on, I'm still in significant pain. I'm telling my doctor, I'm like, something's going on. He's like, oh, it's literally one of the most damaging injuries you can get. It's going to take time. And I just knew, like I said, I'm going to brag, but I'm a tough bastard. And this was fucking killing me. I had this massage therapist working on it. And one day she just like dug her thumb into my quad tendon, and it was like the worst toothache pain you could imagine in my knee. And I just jumped up. Well, I go into the doctor, we do an ultrasound. He stitched a nerve into the tendon when he fixed it. So all this time for like 6 months now, this nerve was just in a complete inflammatory state, which just laid down such significant scar tissue. Add on the fact with, probably overdoing it with some of the peptides and things like that. So my quad tendon is just this thick, enormous band of scar tissue, which was creating a patellofemoral syndrome issue, which, with the pain signaling is shutting down all the muscles in my leg. And the whole idea of dunking a basketball within 6 months of surgery was just completely out the window. And it was just God, just like I said before I even knew it, just stripping my identity, just losing everything. But, like what else? What else? What else? um, right around that time was when Roe versus Wade started really gaining traction about getting overturned. And one night I'm laying in bed and it just fucking hit me like a ton of bricks. I killed my child. I killed my child. And I never processed it. When that happened, I ran. I buried it like I buried everything else, and I never processed it. I realized that I had completely dismissed the girl that I was with. I never reached out to her. I ran away from her, ran away from that whole situation. And that fucking ate me up. The two things I prided myself on the most growing up was being a good father and a good husband. And I failed at the marriage and I killed my fucking child. And I just wanted to reach out to her, but I didn't know where she was in her path, in her journey, and I didn't want to stir up more shit for her. And I didn't know how to process that, but that hurt so bad. And finally she reached out and we talked about things, and I apologized for never checking in on her, never seeing how she was doing. And she hated me. She hated my guts because I just ran on her. And so rightfully so. But man, that guilt and that shame carried for so long, and I felt like I was being punished because all I wanted was a child. All I wanted to do was be a father, to be the father that I'd never had. And I felt like I was being punished for that. And she felt like she was being punished for that we didn't have the families that we so desperately wanted because of that decision. And, I was so pro-abortion when I was younger. It was just like, whatever, if it doesn't make sense, like, why put that pressure on yourself? But man, has that changed? That changed so much. Like, that is a precious life. And, um, ugh. What else, God? What else? What else could happen through all this? Um, and then what else happens is more of your clients start falling off. And one by one, some of the bigger name clients started falling off here and there. And, it's just part of training. Like, not everybody stays forever. And, uh, I wasn't, I didn't want to be a personal trainer my whole life. Like, I didn't want to become fucking Charles Glass. No offense to Charles, but like, it's all he's known for. And there's a bunch of guys like people like Gold's Venice that's their whole life. To me, it was still that trauma of, like I saw that as beneath me as a trainer. It was so hard being a trainer. Like, here I was with all these aspirations of being a doctor, and I have a master's degree, and I'm a personal trainer, so I carried shame on that for such a long time as well. And so I knew that was an empty life. Like, I knew there was something beyond bodybuilding, something beyond training. And like, training was always just a means to an end to me for something else. And I still had this vision of this wellness center that I was very passionate about, and I knew would just revolutionize, the way we approach functional health and nutrition and training and kind of this holistic approach to making the best version of yourself. And I still do. I think it's a beautiful concept, and I can't wait to see someone do it. There's been a lot of things come close, but no one's nailed it right yet. But yeah, so there I am, bleeding money, just bleeding money. But I didn't want to promote myself. I didn't want to pick up more clients because there was just that emptiness to it. And, not sure what to do next. My best friend was like, "Hey, why don't you just buy a van and go travel the country for a year?" As I mentioned, I told him that was the worst idea ever, which is exactly why I had to think about that path. It took a long time. Did a bunch of research, looked for vans, it was just, again, I was stuck in this, like, a life of comfort. I had a beautiful house. My mortgage was cheap. I had enough money. I could have picked up the personal training business if I really put effort into it, put myself out there. I could be making a few $100,000 a year just being a trainer and living life. But there was emptiness to it. There was a slow death. And I was on this healing journey as well. And I'll jump into that whole journey in the next episode. But finally, I pulled the trigger. I just realized, like, I needed to get away because it was going to be another trap. And there'd always been this voice inside my head since I was a kid that said I was meant for greatness. And I hate even saying that because it sounds cocky. And that's the opposite of who I was. But there was just something inside of me that always whispered that I was meant for greatness. And I think that was part of the hard part of my journey. Was like, I knew I was meant for something big. And that pressure to live up to that was so heavy on top of all the other pressures from family and everything else. I thought football was going to be it. That wasn't it. I thought medical school and being a surgeon was going to be it. And that wasn't it. I thought bodybuilding was going to be it. And that wasn't it. So I knew there was something greater out there for me. And I didn't know what it was. And I just was burnt out. Just burnt out. Like, I'm a grinder. I can work my ass off. I got a motor that doesn't stop. I still say to this day at 43 years old, I run circles around 20-year-olds all day. Sorry, not 43 yet. Give me another month and a half. But there was just my soul was just burnt out. So got the van and had this big vision of taking off, exploring the country, stepping away from everything. Go disappear in a jungle. Go find God. So I left. I'm going to leave this episode here. I'll pick up the rest of the story in the next one.
This story ends today, but yours is still waiting to be told. You're not alone in this walk in life. If this hits you, share it with someone that needs it. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Find me at Brad B. Rowe at Instagram. And if you're ready to step into the front row of your life, whether it be the fellowship, the foundry, coaching, or support the ministry, you can find it all at frontrow.co. I'll see you next week.